and have found the day to be everything you hoped it would be. I want to start out first by calling our attention to the conference theme once again. A recovery symposium, aligning concepts, practice, and context to promote long-term recovery, an action plan. And I want to, for a moment, just place a little bit of emphasis on the word aligning. Because we've had a number of presentations today from a number of very different perspectives, and I think Wesley just laid out a national perspective as it relates to the treatment system in this country. And it would require some amount of aligning to take his remarks and comments and to put them in a context with some of the other comments that we had. And I think that's in part a challenge of the panel that we're about to hear from. This morning when William White was talking, he mentioned the idea of how history will judge us. And I want to just mention very briefly that during Wesley's tenure, a number of really important things have occurred, and I would say leading right up to his remarks and participation in this meeting. There was, during Wesley's tenure, a national treatment plan. And the national treatment plan was conceived not by the federal bureaucracy, but with their participation and the participation of many people who are in this room. And the national treatment plan kind of morphed as administrations morph, if that's what they do. But the national treatment plan kind of morphed into a Partners for Recovery initiative. And again, involving a lot of the folks in this room. So I think it's really important for us to kind of keep that historical context in mind a little bit as we sort of look at where we're going. This morning, Phil Valentine talked. They had a graphic up there when he was talking about the recovery community, and he put a very beautiful graphic up there of the bridge between treatment and recovery, and also put a bridge up there between recovery and the single state agency directives. And I guess I would like to submit to you that as we think about aligning concepts, practice, and contexts, which is a lot of work, as we think about aligning, one of the things I think is really important is, when you think about Wesley's graphic, those concentric circles, when I looked at those concentric circles, there was an awful lot of institutions that we've got to be sort of bringing on board with our, well, let's just assume for a moment that we come up with some brilliant ideas here, and we're able to capture them in little sound bites that the whole world would understand, right? Okay? So in that kind of a circumstance, we have a Herculean task to translate those little tidbits for all of the other partners in those concentric circles. So the last thing in the world we can afford to do is to not align the treatment piece and the recovery piece and everything else. We have been historically remarkably good, and I would submit to you have not yet learned. We are in the process of learning from our history. But we have yet to figure out a way to celebrate our diversity and to celebrate our different perspectives as important pieces of the same puzzle. So I would submit to you that as we begin to think about Wesley's remarks, coming from the national perspective and thinking about treatment, how is it that each one of us, coming from our unique perspectives, can work together to align our different ideas and to celebrate our diversity in such a way that when we leave this room and go out into the world and talk to all those other little spots on the concentric circles, that it actually sounds like something exciting and something that other folks would want to engage in. Because the last thing in the world they want to do, unless they're interested in not working with us, the last thing in the world they want to do is to hear about our differences. And to hear why you shouldn't talk to those guys, you should talk to these ones. Okay? So that's a little bit of a setup for our folks. And I want to just say, you know, the bridge is a very good image. And I think, frankly, there's a burden of responsibility on all of us for building bridges with all the folks in the room that we don't like, right? And all the folks in the room whose ideas we don't like. Because when we build those bridges, we will move forward in a really neat way. And let me just tell you something. We've got a very lively and intelligent and wonderful leader in New York State, Karen Carpenter-Plum, who you heard from a little bit earlier. And it might be hard to believe that she's very humble, but she is. She failed to brag about an initiative that she's doing in New York State, committing $2 million to create recovery centers across the state. And when I was looking at Phil's graphic of the different recovery centers in Connecticut, I was thinking about the number of recovery centers that will soon be on the map in New York State. And that's a beautiful thing. And she has some wonderful ideas as well about research and having some of the states, you know, pool their agendas a little bit and build some bridges between each other to do some really neat things. So I just would like to suggest that, you know, single state agency directors and the recovery community and the treatment folks can really work together and do some really neat things. And we need to figure out a way to close the doors and have the difficult conversations we have so that when we need to go out there and talk with the world, we do good things. Melody Heaps is going to be the first panelist to speak with us. And Melody is known to many of you. She was actually involved with the National Treatment Plan and Partners for Recovery. Her full-time job is that of founder and president of the Treatment Alternatives for Safe Communities, I think based in Chicago, if I'm not mistaken. And Melody is really, I think, a hero, very frequently the only person in the room when important policy people are talking about the criminal justice population. And if there's only going to be one voice in the room talking about that population, I'm very happy that it is Melody. I'd like to introduce her this morning.